Good evening, Kenton community. My name is Sabatino Samato. I am your superintendent, and this is your weekly connection update. Many components today in the connection. First, we're going to talk about some changes and the planning that has taken place and where we are currently with our academic model. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about playgrounds. We're going to move quickly then to our assessment schedule for 3 through 8 that is coming up. Talk a little bit about meal distribution and finish off with our recognitions for this week. So let's get going. First, I want to commend all of our school teams for all of the work that they've been doing. Ladies and gentlemen, we know as of today when I'm recording this, Thursday right before spring recess, as a school district, we have not received updated guidance yet from New York State. We have heard that New York State is really thoroughly looking at those recommendations from the CDC, and they will be releasing guidance. But as of today, we haven't. Now, you know that in the previous updates, I've informed the community that our teams at our schools are not only working based on the new recommendations that we saw from the CDC, but in the event that we don't receive any updates from New York State, also, we've been working with that 6 feet of social distancing and how we can increase our in-person instruction in the current model that we have. So today, we are announcing that we're adding Wednesdays. Even though we have not received that new guidance yet under our current model, we are adding Wednesdays as days of in-person instruction at the elementary level, grades K through 4. This change will be implemented now, folks. This is that week of April 19th that we spoke about. So where we're going with this is not that first week that we come back from break, but on that Wednesday, April 21st, that will be a day of attendance on that Wednesday for our Group A students. Then the following week, April 28th, that Wednesday will be a day of attendance for our B students. Now that is our grades K through 4. We're only talking about our elementary model right now, and those weeks will fluctuate back and forth. And it's important to understand just by adding those Wednesdays back into the mix, and Wednesday's been used at the elementary level for many things. But this will increase in-person instruction by 25% for all of those students. So it's important that we're really altering our schedule now to really come into this new model. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's a couple caveats to this and a couple changes that will take place. One change is that students who are enrolled in fully virtual VLA learning will no longer have any morning meetings with the hybrid teachers. Those families have said that they're going to remain in VLA for the rest of the school year. You'll continue working with those VLA teachers, and pretty much we've seen a pretty steep decline with those morning meetings with the hybrid teachers. So we're eliminating those hybrid morning teachers with the VLA students. Also, some other changes that are taking place is that we will no longer have synchronous ELA instruction on Wednesday mornings. So those are 2 major schedule changes that I want everyone at the elementary level to be aware of. Now, folks, this does not eliminate that we're looking and we're still focused on trying to move our elementary back to 4 and 5 days instruction. Okay, and as I've said before, coming out of this pandemic, in many ways, will be even more challenging than coming into this pandemic. So we will have some changes, and we're changing on the fly, and I appreciate all the patience of our families, all the work, dedication, and patience of our staff. This is our first change. Even while we're waiting for guidance, we don't want any more time to go by. So as I said, we will have that first change on Wednesday, April 21st. That's that second week back from the recess. Our Group A students in elementary will attend, and then the following Wednesday, Group B students will attend. So, folks, if more guidance comes out and we see something new from New York State, of course, we're going to change again. So I want everyone to be prepared for that. This is our first step. We have a tendency in Kenton that we always do things in phases. We're phasing in into our model here, and if that guidance changes from New York State, another phase is going to happen. Now, I want to update everyone. You'll see in the weekly connection that we're still working on this 3 feet, as I mentioned before. And I brought up some challenges last week. Some challenges that I made sure to talk to our families about. Our first major challenge was transportation. And families, I got to tell you, I've never seen such dedication as the dedication that I see in Kenton from our families. You are second to none. A prime example of this is how you stepped up to the plate and hit it out of the park with this request that we made last Friday. We requested our elementary families, those that are taking currently transportation, if anyone else could figure out how to drive their students to and from school, because we were overloaded on some of our buses. Let me give you some of the statistics we were looking at. Our buses in that recommendations that we've seen so far this school year, and we saw it repeated in the CDC recommendations of putting 1 child per seat, except family members could come together. So that really puts us at about 21 students max capacity on a bus, except for when family members can sit together. And our transportation department looked where family members could sit together, but it still left us with 26 school bus routes that were over capacity. And I'm happy to say that because of the dedication of our community, we really only have it down to 4 routes that are still challenges. Only 4. So congratulations, kudos to all of those families that really worked and are looking to help us out. And folks, if you fall into a case where you have trouble and you need to contact transportation to come back onto the bus, of course, you can always contact transportation. But we really can't tell you how much all the families that have done this all year and the new families that are signing up, that's that partnership that you're second to none in. And an excellent job. So transportation may still be reaching out to a few families here and there to see if there's anybody else that might be willing to change a route, to just get those buses balanced out. But that's one challenge that we're able to overcome. Congratulations to our transportation department. You guys have been working around the clock and just doing excellent work. That change, those changes, we asked families that said that they would drive. That first week that we come back from break, let's get into the habit of following those changes. So, folks, when we come back from the spring recess, Monday, April 12th, let's have all those changes taking place if you were one of the families that we were fortunate enough that you volunteered or you continue to volunteer from all this year. Let's make sure that we're continuing that on April 12th. Now, we know that another challenge that we talked about was eating. We see on the CDC recommendations, even if it went down to 3 feet of social distancing in the classroom, that the recommendation still listed 6 feet whenever children eat. I'm happy to say that a lot of progress has been made for lunchtime. Now, I need our community to understand, because people will say, well, Samato, because I'm going to tell you what the biggest challenge is breakfast. Okay, well, why would we have a problem at breakfast if we don't have a problem at lunch? And it's all about scheduling, ladies and gentlemen. When schools schedule lunch, usually they're scheduling lunch over 2, 3, sometimes even 4 periods. And we're able to take a whole school and stretch them out over those periods and utilizing the classroom as well as the cafeteria, other spaces in the school. We can, principals and their teams of teachers they're wonderful in figuring out scheduling and how we could do this. It's been a huge challenge from supervision, having to hire more staff, doing all these other things, but we can pretty much figure out lunch. Breakfast is still going to be a major hurdle. And it is so important, folks, especially our little ones, actually for all of our students, starting off the day being well fed with a good meal. Really, the brain research is clear and how much it helps students to learn during the day. So it's just not an option to not feed students. We're still looking at ways, schools are still looking at ways to solve this problem. We're continuing to think out of the box. Stay tuned. Like I said, that New York State guidance has not been released yet, so we're still in the planning phases. and we'll continue to look at that. Now, I'm going to make a comparison for you. It's like flying a plane. You've heard me make this comparison before. Coming into the pandemic, it felt like we were building the plane as we were flying it. Now it feels like we're in our built plane and we're trying to bring it in for a landing. And there, as pilots, there's all these things that we go through the checklist. We're putting down the landing gear. The flaps are coming down. It feels like we're at that point now. But landing a plane is never easy. Sometimes it is the most challenging part of the flight. So I want everyone to realize that's where we are. And this New York State guidance will dictate, can we bring some things in for a landing for especially elementary? We talked about secondary last time. Secondary, our current model, it looks like in the CDC guidance that things would have to remain at 6 feet, but we're hopeful. The teams are still planning for if it does not. Let's be clear about that. But we're even more hopeful for our elementary that we're going to be able to land this plane, bring it in safely, and figure out how to get back to 4 and 5 days of instruction, but we have to wait for that guidance. Now, with that being clear, last week I said the earliest that we would do 4 to 5 days would be the week of April 19th. Now we're going to have to push that back. The earliest that we would be able to do 4 to 5 days at elementary will be April 26th. Folks, every time we push back a week, we're pushing back a week, and we'll see, on the back end, I should say, we'll see when this guidance comes out. Hopefully it'll be out soon, and we'll be able to get some of these questions answered, but our teams are not stopping with the planning. They're figuring this out the best that they can, and taking the curveballs even as they're thrown, but we are going to find a way to land this plane. And I want our community to understand it will continue to be challenging. And kiddos, what you have to remember is this is not the time to become complacent. We are so proud of you with everything that you've done to make sure that our buildings stay safe. The mask wearing, the sanitizing, the hand washing, the using of sanitizer, all across the board. This has been phenomenal. And parents, that's where that partnership comes into play also. We can't become complacent as a community. If your child has a fever, don't send them to school. This is not the time they cannot come to school. Fill out that attestation in the morning. Make sure, and please understand, if we ever call you from the schools, you have to be prepared to come get your child, especially during this time of a pandemic. We know that it's a huge challenge on families. Families have been challenged more than anything else during this pandemic. But we want to be very transparent about that. We're still following guidelines. We're still keeping schools as safe as possible. Everyone sees the news. We know we're not out of the woods yet. We're getting there, folks. We're getting there. Let's bring that plane in for a landing together. It's not going to be easy, but if we continue to work together, we can land it safely. We can make the progress that we need to make safely, and we can get back to, hopefully, we're all dreaming of that pre-pandemic instructional model. More in-person instruction, the better. We know our schools are safe. Our schools are only safe because of all the work that our staff has done, all of the work our families have done. Let's continue to do it together. Speaking of moving forward, I want to be clear in our phasing in and moving forward. As of today, we're reopening our playgrounds. So our playgrounds are going to be used by our schools. Now, folks, I want to be clear about this, and please, community, don't take this the wrong way. During school hours, those playgrounds are being used by the schools. Outside of the realm of pandemic, you're going to hear me as your superintendent say things like this. Please do not come and use the playgrounds during the school day. Folks, we still have to be very cognizant of things like stranger danger, making sure that we're following our protocols on our playgrounds. Now, I know that's inconvenient for families. We do have a lot of parks within the town that families who are home during the day utilize those other parks, but our school playgrounds really have to be utilized by our schools, making sure that your children during the day are safe and that we do everything to take the proper precautions to make sure that those playgrounds are safe. So thank you very much for your understanding there, and let's make sure that we're moving forward that way together. 3 through 8 assessments. Folks, New York State has a waiver into our federal government, to the New York State Department of Education. I've brought this up in previous connections, but that has not been approved. And we know that the U.S. Department of Education did not approve the blanket waiver to get rid of assessment requirements this year. So as of right now, our 3 through 8 assessments are going to be taking place. I encourage you to really look at the connection. I'll go through some of those dates right now. The ELA assessment is scheduled to take place April 19th for Cohort A and April 22nd for Cohort B. The math assessment is scheduled to take place May 3rd for Cohort A and May 6th for Cohort B. And the science assessment for 4th and 8th graders is scheduled to take place June 7th for Cohort A and June 10th for Cohort B. Now, of course, these dates will be subject to change based on if we receive new guidance. We'll always inform you about that, and we move to more days of instruction at the elementary level. And remember, there were major changes in those assessments this year. They are not counted for accountability or evaluation purposes, and they're only one-shot deals with 60 to 90 minutes for each assessment. Be prepared. That's when we come back from spring recess. Also, next week, everybody knows this, that went to pick up their food distribution and has been taking advantage of that food distribution here in the district. Kim Roll and our food service department doing a fantastic job. But there is no breakfast and lunch distribution next week while schools are closed. Anybody that went this week received extra to include for next week. Our people and folks, I hope you can understand, but people also need downtime with their own families, and that's the model that we're going for next week. Everybody to kind of refresh and get ready to hit the end of the year full steam ahead. So our food service department, great job that you've been doing. That's why we doubled up this week. And finally, we're going to end this week with our recognition, and it's about our kiddos. I'll tell you. This week, we recognize the Kenmore-West boys hockey team and also our combined girls bowling. Let's talk about boys hockey first. Our boys hockey team finished overall with a record of 12-2-2 and won the Section 6 Small Schools Championship. They overcame Star Point by a score of 2-1 in double overtime at the Harbor Center on Saturday. Brandon Zeller scored the first goal of the game, and Philip Abbott scored the game-winning goal with 55 seconds left in a second overtime period. Goaltender Max Polino was outstanding in net, making 35 saves and named the MVP of the postseason. The team earned the title the hard way, winning 4 exciting overtime games in a row, beating Amherst, Williamsville South, Grand Island, and then Star Point. Congratulations to the entire team, as well as Coach Rob Rozak, Assistant Coach Corey Lloyd, our Director of Athletics, Brett Baker, and to everyone else who has helped the team along the way, and our families. It's a huge dedication when you have children also in sports, especially during COVID. Congratulations, Kenmore-West boys hockey. And then our Kenmore-West hockey team was not the only one that had a stellar season. The combined Kenmore East and Kenmore-West girls bowling team finished 11-1 overall and earned the Niagara Frontier NFL League Championship. Carrie Durner finished with a 157 average for the year. Folks, I don't even know if I've ever bowled a 157. A 213 she had for a personal high game and a 545 personal high set. She was also 30 pins over last year's average. Mary Henkel had a 148 average and was the most improved bowler in the NFL with a plus 38 pins over last year. Cassidy Pierce and Megan Walker finished with a 165 and 171 averages, respectively, and won second and third team all NFL awards. And folks, keep an eye out for all of a recap of all of our winter sports, which are highlighted in other successes from the winter season. Most importantly, our student athletes, and this is how I want to end today. Just like Kenton, our student athletes have been the model for all other students throughout the region. They have faced all of this adversity, all of these challenges with class, character, and the Kenton way. They show everyone repeatedly what it means to be the pride of Kenton. I congratulate all of our students, all of our coaches. Great time, great seasons. We're continuing with our seasons now. Folks, once again, this is not the time to become complacent. We want to celebrate together. We want to land the plane together. This is probably one of the longest landings that we're ever going to be through, but let's land it together. Let's figure out whatever's thrown our way, and let's continue that communication so that we can bring this plane in for a landing, because together we will be Kenton proud. Together we're even Kenton stronger, and together we will move Kenton forward. Please have a wonderful, safe spring recess. Spend time with the family, love and care for each other, and let's be Kenton together.